Please take your seats. School is now in session.
Welcome to Homeschool Podcast.
Homeschool.
The Homeschool Podcast. Why? Because he was homeschooled.
It's time to document the journey.
Happy New Year. Welcome back to Homeschool Podcast. I'm Augustino Zoida. It's great to have you guys back. I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend, Christmas week. I hope you had a great New Year's Eve weekend. I was on the road for New Year's Eve weekend. I was working Phoenix, Arizona, and haven't talked to you guys since, so I hope you had a good one. I hope you enjoyed the last episode. I had a nice Christmas episode. We had Zach Ward from A Christmas Story and the sequel on. And then I don't know if you guys have been following, but I've got a second podcast that just talks about movies. This is more, Homeschool Podcast is more stand-up comedy, almost just sharing, almost like a comedy class, but not really. Sharing experiences of stand-up comic stories, cool guests, anybody who's, entrepreneur and had to teach themselves everything and pursuing their own dreams. But then, so if you haven't been following, I got another podcast. It's called The Movie Stash. That one's all movies. I co-host with my buddy Kevin Lyons, where it always ends with a movie trivia round, and whoever wins that gets to pick the next movie that we force the other one to watch and discuss. So we're discussing movies, rating movies, and it's good. It's a lot of fun. So sorry if we missed you on New Year's, but you did have that one, and then the other one also came out. Plus, I did somebody else's podcast that week. There's a little too much me out there in the universe, everybody. So by the way, if you were at the Arizona shows on New Year's weekend, thank you so much for coming out. I had a blast with you people. We're awesome. Just great. Overall, powerful numbers from in terms of like audience turnout. It was great and just fun people, man. Thursday night, was even crowded. It was like 150 people for Thursday, guys. That's off the hook, and it was great. And Thursday, I'm not going to lie, if you were at the Thursday show, you are not my favorite audience. It was one of those audiences, and if you're a comic, you know this. Like, sometimes there'll be an audience, and you think you're just bombing. You think they don't like you. And then when you get off stage and people are, like, saying hi to you after the show and stuff, they're like, oh, my God, I love you. Are so funny. I don't know if they're just being nice, but I really don't think so. I really think that they genuinely enjoyed themselves, and it was just one of those audiences that were not super loud and vocal about it. You'll run into those every now and then. And of course, every now and then there's bad crowds. I don't think this was a bad crowd. I just think they were a quiet one compared to like the Friday shows and the Saturday shows, which are, obviously way more packed. The early ones are all sold out. And but the energy was just there. The energy is now 150 people for a Thursday night is a lot of energy too. It's just, sometimes, listen, I've done sold out shows where it was the same thing, it was just people. Now listen, guys, you gotta have really good self-awareness on this one. So this is one of the things that we're going to talk about today. Gotta have really good self-awareness on this one. So sometimes it is you that you aren't funny, okay? A lot of the times it can be that. Now, if you're a comedian, you've probably heard a lot that they'll say, never blame the audience. I agree with what this is with what this is trying to do. I love the fact that a comic should always be their own worst critic, okay? I love the fact that an audience go-to shouldn't be, that crowd sucked. They should always look at what they could have done better. So I love the merit behind the saying, never blame the audience. However, it is completely and utterly bullshit. It's not that you should never blame the audience. Sometimes it is you, okay? Sometimes you bombed. Sometimes you weren't funny. Sometimes they just didn't find you funny. Or there's little things you could have done to be better, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's to say like never blame the audience. It's asinine. It's like completely a factor. Are you telling me that like the one of the biggest things of being a stand-up comedian, which is an audience, is not a factor? Of course it is. There are many factors. You've got, if a place is empty, obviously you're going to get a bigger reaction if it's packed. But then again, I've done rooms where I've like killed it in front of 4 people. But then again, you have to like lower your standards for 4 people. So on a 4 people crowd, yes, I've killed it. But obviously there are factors. If the audience is not seated correctly, like if the club doesn't know how to seat people, they just let them sit wherever they want. Ends up happening is like you got the whole front row empty. Then you got scattered people over here, someone over on this side. Now every time you're doing a joke, you got to keep looking left and right, which throws off your rhythm and timing. Not to mention, laughter is contagious. So if you're sitting close to someone who's laughing, they'll laugh more. If you are in a room that's too light, lighting has to do with it. If people feel like they're too exposed and you would hear them laugh, they won't laugh as much because they feel embarrassed because people can actually see who laughed at what. So a darker room is better. People feel more secure that they can laugh at stuff, especially if it's crowded. Lower ceilings is a thing. The laughs don't go up and out. They stay compact, or a room that doesn't go super far back, the laughs come back at you. So there's room factors. You got a group of people that could have just been all working all day, like a Thursday night crowd, or a Friday night crowd, and you got people who just weren't in a mood. And yes, every now and then there are those crowds. Guys, I've been doing comedy almost 14 years. This February will be 14 years. And I'm telling you that those crowds just exist. There are the crowds that are just, they had a great time and they didn't let you know until after the show. They told you verbally instead of just laughing and showing it. It just exists. Now, that's not an excuse for you to not do better, okay? You should always, that's why I said I love the merit behind the expression, never blame the crowd. I just don't believe that it's true, but I like what it is. I like what it's endorsing. You should always be your own worst critic. Always think what could have you done different. Hopefully you're always learning every single show, improving yourself, there are times where it's you. Now, I would say over this weekend in Arizona was my favorite show of the weekend was Saturday, which was New Year's Eve, the early show, not the late one where you count down to midnight. Although all shows were great. Again, if you were at the Phoenix House of Comedy this weekend, thank you very much for coming out. And I'll be back soon. We'll talk about that a little later. But favorite show was the early show Saturday. Least favorite show was the Thursday night, which ended up being good after all. People did like it. They were just a little quiet. But we as comics, we feed off the energy. And then I've noticed like a couple of like Friday shows. I think it was the Thursday and Friday show where like I could have done better. I definitely. Like I said, Saturday early show was my favorite, but the other shows, although there were factors, I know that there were things I could have done. So, like, let me give you guys an example. One of the things I was doing, I was on stage. It was Thursday. Okay, now I remember it was that Thursday show. So, yes, I do think it was one of those audiences, but you always have to ask yourself, what could I have done to be better? Okay, so it was I haven't been to that particular location in like 2 years. I forgot how high the stage was. A lot of stages. I don't know if you guys can hear the rain right now. You hear that? It's raining in Southern California. Coming at you from the Homeschool Podcast studio in Southern California in my garage where you can hear the rain. All right. So a lot of stages and stages I'm really used to, more commonly a stage will be like really wide, like in front of you, so you can like kind of really walk out to the edge of the stage if you want to walk back and forth, interact with people and things like that. Now, this stage is big but high, not big wide. So you can't really walk around as much. There's a stool and a mic stand on there, so it's already narrow. It's just high up above everybody, but it's just narrow, so you're not walking that much, and you can't walk, which is fine. You don't necessarily need to be moving around a whole bunch when you're doing stand-up, but I mean, sometimes I do like to walk out a little further, but you couldn't. You're kind of stuck in that movement, and you're so much higher, which I haven't done that club in 2 years, and it threw me off for a second. Now, is any of this a valid excuse for not doing your absolute best? Absolutely fucking not. But I will tell you what it did do. Everything I just told you about the stage, I thought it while I was on stage. That's what fucked me up. If you are thinking about things like that, then you're not in the moment. You're not performing in front of that group of people. You're just going through your script. You're going through the motions. But meanwhile, in your head, you're thinking all this. How did I have time to think about, oh, the stage is higher than I remember. Oh, I can't really walk that out that much because it's high this way, not this way. How the fuck am I able to think all this when I'm on stage performing? That's called being in your head, okay? And the only way I can describe what it's like to be in your head while you're on stage performing is it feels like you're not on stage. It feels like you're outside and you're staring through a window that is you on stage. You're watching yourself on stage while you're outside looking through a window. Like, that's what it feels like to be in your head. And it's just really not ever good. You never want to be in your head. I'm a big believer in material. I'm not a big crowd work guy. I'm a writer. I like keeping to my material, but you should also be in the moment. And if, something happens in the room, you adapt, you adjust to it. And if nothing was happening in the room, I should have been in the moment anyway of selling my jokes as if it was the first time I had ever heard them, because it was the first time that these people ever heard them, and they should have been getting the best performance. Now, do I think that they were one of those audiences that just weren't super vocal? Yes. However, always ask, how could you have done better? Okay? So that's lesson number one. Now let's talk about some things that are going on in my comedy, ups and downs, peaks and valleys. So this, by the way, okay. So again, thank you for coming out to Arizona. I will be back there headlining it myself, June 22nd through the 25th. Now, this time, the New Year's Eve weekend, I wasn't headlining. I was actually featuring for a comedian named Trix, very, very funny comedian who I like working with a lot, because he's never come up to me after a show and told me not to do a certain joke or try to be cleaner or do this or don't do that. You'll be surprised at how many comics will do that to you. And that's why there's only a handful of people that I'll still agree to feature for. And the list keeps getting smaller for this reason, and also I just think that I should keep promoting myself and not demoting myself. But that's the reason why. There's Joey Diaz never once told me, don't do this joke, don't do that joke, be clean. I have a similar joke, so don't do that one. Never even once gave a shit about what I said his credits were. I think maybe once because he had a movie coming out and he's just said, make sure you mention the movie. That was it. That's something I really respected. I mean, if he gave me any notes, it was notes. It was help. It wasn't, don't do this joke, it's too dirty. It was help. It was like, hey, I think you say the word bitch too much in that joke. It loses its power. You say it once here. He's giving me notes, but never don't do this. Jimmy Schubert is a guy that I'll still open for because the guy is just a crusher. It's just a crusher. I never have to worry about murdering, and then the headliner comes up to me and goes can you tone it down, or can you not do that joke anymore because it's too dirty? But in actuality, it's the reasons they can't follow it. I never have to worry about that with a guy like Jimmy Schubert because the guy's a fucking murderer. He doesn't care who he follows. Sam Tripoli too is always been the attitude of do whatever you want, do whatever you want out there, just have fun. That's his attitude, and also he's got his niche following. So I like going on the road with guys who are really selling tickets to people that are there to see them. Sometimes you'll go, if you come to see me, you probably don't know me unless you're a giant fan of this podcast or you've heard me on other podcasts or stuff like that. You follow me on TikTok or whatever the fuck it is. But for the most part, if you come to see me, I'm not a household name. You're coming to take a chance on me. You're coming because it's Saturday night. It's comedy. It's something to do. I got some credits that you might have heard of. Let's go see if this guy's funny. That's why you're coming to see me. And the more fame you get, or following you get, I should say, it's less of that. Like right now, I'd say I'm like 90% that and 10% people that are actually know me. Okay. Eventually, you have like, let's say you have like a popular podcast or something like that. Now, those guys usually will go out. Your audience comes out in the late shows, or a Thursday. But, your Saturday early shows, you still have 50% of the room is people that are just going out to see stand-up. And then the other 50% are your fans. So if you keep building this following, you're just increasing the odds of stacking the room to be your people. And I really like working with guys that have their own following. Like Sam Tripoli's got a niche following from the conspiracy podcast that he does. So like I like going with guys like that because they'll never come up to me afterward and be like, don't do this joke or be cleaner, or they're worried about like you doing too well or something like that, because those people at the end of the day are there to see them. They don't give a shit what the fuck you do. They don't know who the hell you are. You can go up there, do great, fine, and then they're waiting to see the guy they couldn't see. That's why I like those types of audiences too. And Trix is one of those guys that's like he's a good comic, so he doesn't ever need to worry about who he's gonna follow, and he's just a good guy, and he doesn't have to come up to me and be like, oh, can you not do that? So anyway. Back to the fucking point of the story is there's a handful of people that I'll still feature for those reasons. And this is probably going to be my last time featuring, at least, it depends on who it is though, but at least I'd say at these clubs at the House of Comedies who already works me as a headliner. So, but they just never have given me a headlining date at this location in Arizona. I've worked all the other ones as a headliner. So finally they've given me my headlining date, June 22nd through the 25th. So if you're at the Arizona shows, you want to see me headline, do a full hour, come back. But besides that, I had a great time featuring. I was doing 25, 30 minutes on stage, having great sets, having a great time with the people. And it honestly, it's like one of my favorite clubs to do because they put you up at the condo, which is just so nice. And it's like you got a pool, hot tub, gym, but everything right there is so close. You walk across the street, the comedy club's there. There's the Mellow Mushroom next door, where all the comedians always hang out after the shows because the drinks and the food is cheap. You get pizzas and stuff. And then you got, there's just so many bars and nightlife right there on that strip. So it's one of the fun ones. But yeah, I think in terms of House of Comedy, I'm not going to do it. And you have to promote yourself sometimes. I walk into the club and, one of the owners was there on Thursday and he was like, what are you doing here? You're featuring? And he's like kind of busting my balls a little bit. He's like, you don't really know how this business works, do you? That's what he says to me. He goes, you're not supposed to go backwards. You're supposed to go forwards. And he's absolutely right. I mean, for me, it was New Year's Eve, and it's nice to work on New Year's Eve. I didn't already have any headlining dates. I'm not big enough to where that club would have given me one of their other rooms to headline. And so, I mean, I got asked by Trix to do it, and I said, sure, I'd rather work on New Year's Eve than not, but it's totally fine. It didn't interfere at all with my already existing headlining date, and it was great. I got to go on stage and kill it every night and tell people, hey, if you want to see me headline, come back, give them tickets and stuff. So it worked out. And that's what you want to do, but you've got to always be promoting yourself. Like not demoting yourself. So if you're waiting for people to come along and just be like, well, we're promoting you at your job, it's just not going to happen. If somebody could, they will just keep you where you are and continue to take from you and pay you what they're paying you and see how much they can get from you from that. And if you do nothing about it, they are not going to promote you on their own. They're not going to walk in and go, here's a raise one day. They're not. You've got to approach them. You've got to go after it. You've got to ask for a raise, change your job, promote yourself. You have to do it. So if you want to be, if you want to stop emceeing, if everybody goes like, hey, host my show, you don't really like hosting anymore. Hosting's great to start off doing stand-up, especially weekend gigs. You learn the ins and outs. You learn like a lot. So you should definitely start off hosting. But if you've been doing it for a while and you're already sick of it and you want to be bumped up to that next level of a feature, and you're like, I can do fucking 25 minutes and I'm sick of hosting. You don't want to do it. You know what you got to do, guys? You got to promote yourself. And you do that by turning down hosting gigs. Somebody offers you a hosting gig, you just got to go, I really appreciate it, but no, thank you. I'm trying to don't be disrespectful, be very thankful. Just be like, I'm trying not to host anymore. Like, just tell them, just be respectful, but tell them the truth. However you got to say, be like, my New Year's resolution is not to host anymore because I'm trying to bump myself up to feature. If you have any feature work, like, please give me the chance. I'll show you I could do it. You got to do it. And then some clubs will start to feature you. And then another one's going to start asking you to go back and MC. And you're going to be like, well, this one, I'm already featuring. You're going to have to make that decision to sacrifice the MC work because you don't want people, you're featuring already now, and you don't want anybody to see you as any less than that. So these are, excuse me, I had a little lint on my camera. It was bothering me. These are little things that you can do to promote yourself, but you, at the end of the day, have to be willing to make that sacrifice because you could turn down a lot of work, stage time, which is very hard to get depending on where you live. Fuck it, even in LA where there's so much stage time, it's hard to get stage time. There's too many comics here. So you're gonna have to make the call on that one, you guys. But I will say this one last thing before I let you go. Hopefully you guys are getting something from this educationally here at Homeschool Podcast, especially if you want to be a performer. I mean this in no disrespect towards anyone specific because I won't mention anyone specific. So, but I have been thinking to myself, not that I would do it, but if I were to quit stand-up, not saying I'm doing it, I'm not saying I'm thinking about quitting, but I'm saying if one day I were to, I don't think it would be rejection that made me do it. I don't think it would be depression that made me do it. You know what would be the reason? It would be of how hard it is to watch bad comedy. Now that might sound like the biggest egotistical thing that you could say, like, I think I'm so good. No, I know I can be better. I know I'm always going to be progressing to be better. Every year you should be better than the last year, of course. But you don't know the anxiety of watching bad comedy on stage, especially if you're next. Oh man, it's hard. I get such anxiety, especially, it's a new weight on my shoulders I've taken on since I've started headlining. Is I didn't care as much before. Like, if I was the opener, I didn't care how the fucking feature did or how they. Well, if you're the MC, if the feature does bad, you should care because that means you got to go up and get the room back before you bring on the headliner. I also wouldn't care if the headline, it didn't bother me as much if in LA I'm doing a show and there's LA has showcase style shows, so it's not MC feature headliner. It's just a bunch of comics that do like 15 minutes each. So like, if some of them aren't good or the one that who cares? You know what I mean? But I've noticed that when I've taken the role of headliner, that this has really weighed down on me the past couple of years is like the pressure of I know how much people are paying to see a show, and at the end of the day they're paying to see me. If you're the headliner, people are expecting the headliner to be the best one. Obviously they expect the openers to not be as good as the headliner. Sometimes you get a great fucking opener, but people pay their hard-earned money to go out and buy a ticket, whatever it costs, $15, $25, $30 for a ticket, and you buy a ticket and then you got to get a babysitter. You're going out and you're buying drinks too. We're in a recession, but even if it wasn't, these people that go out to comedy clubs are blue collar, hardworking people. They work hard for their money, and it pains me to see comic after comic bombing. Again, I'm not specifically talking about any comic. I'm not mentioning anybody's names. I'm not going after a recent experience in Arizona or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm talking about over the course of 2 years of who I've been seeing open for me in other states, other cities, whether it's the MC, the feature, or somebody came by and did a guest spot. the stuff I'm seeing is like, it gives me so much anxiety because I know that people paid money to come see this show, and that pressure's all on me. And you're there as the opener to kind of take a little bit of that weight off my shoulders. Do you know the term that comedy clubs use for openers? They call it support. They'll say, I have a budget of $300 for support, or who are you bringing for support? Like, that's where when they say that, that means you're openers, okay? So it's the word support, and that's what you are. You're there. You're support, like a best actor and a supporting actor. If you are, like, these are things that you guys should be knowing. You should be knowing. Now, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can get better at all this stuff at the end. I'm not just fucking picking on people, but I am telling you that it gives me anxiety. I want the crowd to get their money's worth, and I don't want it to all come down on me. Also, it's going to be that much harder for me to give them a good show if you're doing bad. If there's like 2-3 comics in a row that are all bombing, by the time I get up there, like, have zero faith in this show. I have to dig my way out of a hole, and by the time I've dug my way out of a hole, they've only got 20 minutes of fucking having a good time. So maybe a half hour. So your job is to, as support, is to take a little bit of weight off my shoulders. Now, obviously, the majority of it is still on the headliner's shoulders, but you have jobs as a feature act, as the middle act, as the opener, to do that. That's your job, okay? That's it. Your job is support, to take the pressure a little, take a little bit of that workload on you, and fill the time, so that the audience is getting a 90-minute show, a full show. And that's your responsibility. And as an MC, you have a couple of responsibilities. And this is why it's good to start out MCing. That's how I started, when you go on the road. You learn how to be a comic, and you should also be learning a lot about the business when you're an MC, because, you're checking with this. If you're an MC, you're checking with the staff on when the checks drop, when to light them, make the announcements about upcoming shows and bathrooms, and turn your cell phones off, and no heckling and things like that. Like, these are things that I don't know why, that it's just not. When I was a comic coming up, this was just like common knowledge. I think it's just not anymore. It's not common sense anymore. But these are things that you need to know as a comedian if you want to be a comedian. Like, guys, take classes, read books, watch stand-up. You got to know this stuff, okay? As an MC, the audience almost sees you, and I've actually literally heard this from audience members' mouths. They see you as an employee of the club. I've literally had people tell me, oh, so it was just the 2 comics? And I'm like, what do you mean? There was 3. And they're like, oh, the MC counts? Like, people have said that to me. They said it to me this weekend. I've had people tell me, like, to the MC, they go, oh, that guy doesn't work here? And you're like, no. That guy's not a fucking employee of the But you have to understand, in the eyes of the audience, you represent the comedy club. And if you're MCing, you should dress nice. Now, I hate telling comics what to do on stage. I'm not telling you to wear a fucking dress shirt every single night of the week. But special event, come on, wear something nice. New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, where the ticket price jumped up. You know what I mean? Ticket prices jump up on those holidays. It's like $80 a ticket, $50 a ticket to go out and see comedy, and you're gonna go and you're gonna see a guy wearing an old sweatshirt or a hoodie that hasn't been washed in 2 weeks. It's just, you gotta look professional. But besides that, even if it's not a holiday, you can be casual on the weekday shows, and then Friday you got to bump it up a little bit. I'm not saying that much. Friday and Saturday shows, you gotta dress nice. You gotta, like, whether it's like something hip, like in style, like really cool, or like a dress shirt or something, or if you're a female performer, whatever you want to wear. It's got to be a little dressier. Don't be wearing sweatpants on stage. Don't be wearing hoodies on a weekend. if you want to wear a nice sweatshirt, get a nice sweatshirt that's nice. It looks like I know comics are struggling. I'm not telling you to go drop $200 on a sweatshirt. I'm telling you, you could get something presentable. Whatever you got to do, but this stuff is important. Like these are things that I don't know why they're not being taught anymore. Like they're not registering. Like the first comic that the audience sees is the host. He welcomes everybody to the show. When the lights come up, that's who's out first. And I'm not saying you got to be in a tuxedo every time, but you have to like present yourself with energy. Be happy to be there. Don't come out and be like, "What's up, guys?" If you're a low energy comic, you shouldn't be hosting. And if a club is booking you to host and you're a low energy comic, the club doesn't know what they're doing, or the booker doesn't know what they're doing. You should be getting middle spots, especially if like I've seen guys that are really funny. They're just slow and dry. You're not a host. No energy, like stoner attitude. Like it's, if somebody does book you to be a host, you got to come out with energy. Dress the part. Dress the part, you guys. Dress the part for the job you want, as they say. But people spent money. They look at you as an employee of the club, and I know you're not, and I know you don't want to be looked at like that. But you do represent the club. The club's going to appreciate it. That stuff goes a long way, and they're gonna throw you more work down the line, and that's the bottom line. And so these are things that you can do. And again, it's not just dressing. It's like common sense things. Like these are things that should be taught in a class. Like if you're the host, how to dress, jokes that you shouldn't open with until the crowd's warmed up. You can't go like right into, if you're the host, you can't go right into like a raw dog and fucking joke. You got to like ease into that stuff later, warm them up a little bit. And then you bring on the feature. And then if the feature does great, your job is to bring the headliner up right away or the next comic right away. If the comic doesn't do good, as the MC, your job is to do one joke really quick, something that gets a laugh really fast, or a minute or two, just to get the 30 seconds, a minute, get the audience laughing again, then bring up the next comic. So your job is to do time when the comic bombed, and did not do time when the comic didn't. Bring the next comic up to ride that wave. And I'm sorry, it sucks. I know you want to ride the wave, but that's not your job as an MC. Your job as an MC is to warm up the crowd for them, for the next comic coming up. That's your job. Okay? Don't be bitching about it. That's your fucking job. We all had to go through it. I had to go through it for years. You're going to work your way up that ladder. All right? Little things like that, you guys. So these are things that that you need to work on. And I would say some other tips is, I would say it might not be a bad idea for you to get a job at a comedy club. It sucks after a while. I know the pay isn't always good. It's always like minimum wage to get you washing dishes or something. But if you can like be a door guy or seat people, sell tickets, whatever it is, park cars, run the sound is the best, because then you're watching every single show. If you can just run sound, like play music, if be in the sound booth, like that's an ideal comedy club job, because you're just getting an education. You're watching the comics that bombed and what they did wrong, and you're watching the best comics out there and what they did right. It's just an education. Another good one is just, bartending. You get to talk to the comics and you become friends with them. They take you on the road. It's a great way to network, or just being front of the house at all in the terms of door guy. That's where comics hang out and talk, things like that. But it's just learning the business side of it, and just getting an education as a performer. Other things that I would say, so work at a comedy club and read about stand-up, watch YouTube clips, listen to this podcast, listen to other stand-up podcasts, and most important, number one is getting on stage. That's how you get best, always. But right after that, the best thing you can do to learn and educate yourself is watch a lot of fucking stand-up comedy. Preference, go out and watch as much stand-up comedy live as you can. Second preference, listen to stand-up comedy. Listen to as many specials as you can while driving, while walking, while running. Listen to them. Third preference, watch a lot on TV, Netflix specials, HBO, whatever, Comedy Central, whatever the fuck. To steal their jokes? No. To see how stand-up is done. something I say all the time, which was taught to me by Joey Diaz, which was taught to him by somebody else, is in order to entertain, you must first be entertained. In order to entertain, you must first be entertained. You want to write a book, you got to read a lot of books. You want to write a script, you got to read a lot of scripts. You want to be a stand-up comedian, you got to watch a lot of stand-up comedy. You want to be an actor, you got to watch a lot of movies. You got to. In order to entertain, you must first be entertained. You need to see the best do it. It also doesn't hurt to see the worst do it, to see what they're doing wrong, and just get yourself an education. Watch it, study it like it's homework. I've always been like that. I've just been one of those guys. I've always been a student of the game. And I worked at a comedy club, so if I wasn't watching live comedy, I was listening to it. When I was in the back vacuuming, or doing dishes at the comedy club, had me doing dishes or texting to give away free tickets stuff, I had my headphones on, I was listening to Pandora on, so it was giving me random stand-up comics, listening to different clips, boom, boom, different guys, different styles, like boom, constantly. So that's the preference, is watch as much stand-up comedy as you possibly can live, then listen to audio. Third option is specials. That's the order where you're going to get the most from it, okay? That's where you get the most. Trust me on that one. So I hope that you take this to heart, and I hope to see everybody fucking murdering out there and doing great. And I'm always here for help. You can message me on Instagram, or you can go to my website, augustinocomedian.com. Click on contact. Those do go to my emails. I do get to them as soon as I can. And that's it, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something from this. I hope you were entertained. If you're not a stand-up comedian, I hope it in some way inspired you of how to progress in things that are going on in your life, whether it be career or relationship or anything else in life. Either way, I hope you're getting something from it. But again, thank you to everybody who has continued to support me in 2022, everybody that came out to those shows. And I got a lot of 2023 tour dates coming out for you. As I mentioned, I'm headlining the Arizona House of Comedy. I'll be back there June 22nd through 25th. Put it in your calendar. Don't forget. Hit me up. I'll get you on a guest list if you were already at my this New Year's show. I'll invite you to come back on my guest list. But besides that, January 19th, I'll be in Paso Robles, California at California Coast Brewing. It's probably, I don't know, my fourth or fifth time doing that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm actually going to be hosting that one. I haven't hosted in years, so this is going to be a challenge for me, and doing it to go back and learn some of those chops. But for the most part, it's just that I've been going there twice a year for like the past 2 or 3 years, and I feel like they've seen me headline so many times. I'm going to bring a couple other guys to do their thing, and I'm going to host it. But anyway, that's always a great time, always sells out, and I got fucking great comics I'm bringing. So that's January 19th, Paso Robles, California. And then February 14th, I will be in Sacramento, California. 2 shows. There's a 7:30 and a 9:30 for a Valentine's Day special, headlining. And then March 24th and 25th, I'm in New York, like White Plains on the 24th, and then Brooklyn on the 25th, and that's what I got for you guys right now. There's more tour dates. It's all on my calendar, and tickets are on sale. So go to homeschoolpod.com or augustinocomedian.com. Goes to the same place, augustinocomedian.com. Click on tour, and I hope to see you guys at one of the shows. And that's it. That's it. Like I said, if you were at the Arizona show and you want to come see me headline in June, message me and I will hook up with my guest list, just because you came out once already. But for the most part, I don't like to do any comps. And even for like family and friends, I'm so blessed that everywhere I go, I always have like family and friends I know that come out to the shows and they support me. I love that. I have no problem with that at all. But I also have no problem with putting them on a guest list. But I've been thinking about even like friends and family, like making them go to the website and to get their tickets, because I need people to understand that they need to go through all the motions themselves of how to go out somewhere. It's not about money for me. If for friends and family, I love putting you on my guest list all day to save you money. I don't care. I would love to save you money. I'd rather, you be there than not. So it's not about the money, but for me, it's the people that are texting me and like, what's the address? Where do I park? What time do you go on? What's the age limit? What's the dress code? Is it 18 and over? Is it 21 and over? And I don't mean to sound like a dick. And if it was just like one person, it would be like, oh yeah, I think it's like, I think it's 18 and over, whatever. You know what I mean? That's fine. But the thing is that's like people start at like everywhere I go, I have a bunch of people that are trying to come out to my shows, and they're all texting me, and a lot of it's like leading up to like showtime where I'm preparing mentally, and I'm getting texts like, what's the address? Where do I park? And what's the age limit? Can I bring my cousin who's fucking 12? And is there a 2-drink minimum? Is there a dress code? Like, so I'm starting to think of like not giving away comps just because I want you to go to the website, go through the motions of buying yourself a ticket, reading everything right there, because everybody else who isn't my friend or family in the audience got there somehow. They figured all this out on their own. They weren't texting the performers. This is stuff that you can just, it's online. I'm performing in an establishment that does stand-up comedy. So I think I'm gonna start either like creating a promo code so they can get a discount, or just telling them, go get your tickets online, I'll reimburse you, or I'll buy you drinks there, or something like that. But I can't have people constantly texting me this stuff when I'm trying to get ready to do the show. Like, this is stuff that you guys got to go. Like, if you bought your tickets, you would know all this. It's all right there. You can read the show times, what time it starts, what time you should get there, is there food? All that's on the website. So I got to start sending people to the website just because I can't be getting all these texts right before I go on stage. So, but anyway, that was just a little extra little rant there at the end. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Again, Happy New Year. I wish you all the best in 2023, and you keep coming back to see me. I'm Augustino Zoida. This is Homeschool Podcast. Peace.
Homeschool Podcast. Homeschool.
The Homeschool Podcast. Why? Because he was homeschooled.
I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I don't want to do that at all.